You're listening to Mortgage 101 with Clinton Wilkins and myself, Dan Olstrand. On today's episode, we're joined by special guest Derek Bellefontaine, a real estate appraiser, to talk about building property value,
the role and purpose of appraisals in real estate transactions,
factors that will positively or negatively affect your appraisal,
and projects that homeowners looking to improve their property value can take today to see returns for tomorrow.
And we're very pleased to welcome into the program Derek Bellefontaine, a real estate appraiser with Meritech Appraisals. Derek, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
I guess the best place to start this, for those that don't know, is what does a real estate appraiser do?
Other than just walk around and look at people's homes, we value, we interpret data to value homes, to be security, the eyes and ears of the banks and the lenders.
And so when would someone need to get an appraisal?
The main times are purchasing, when purchasing a home, refinancing, and then what we're seeing a lot more of these days as a result of COVID is separation.
Yeah, I can tell you there's certainly a lot more separations going on now than there were. I can tell you, we see people getting, divorced and separated every day. I have 20,000 clients, but there weren't so many the last couple of years. I would say from 2020 probably until this year, that was slow.
Yeah.
But 2024, it's been rampant. I think people kind of put it on hold. I think one reason is people had to hunker down over COVID.
Yeah.
If like it or not like it, you had to kind of, tough it out. And I think the other reason is it was just a lack of supply of housing. If you're going to break up, you need two households. Really.
Yeah, it was that. And I can also say the third reason might have been because the values jumped so high.
Right.
There's always, there's two parties and one's looking for the high value, one's looking for the low. The other, one of them has to buy out the other one.
That's interesting. I never really thought about that. Yeah, that's interesting. I think the elephant in the room, and people ask me all the time, and they're like, okay, why do I need to get an appraisal? I have a realtor. They can just give me a valuation. Why does, what is different between a realtor giving them a, value and you giving a value? What is the difference there?
Aside from legal, they are not allowed, as good as they are at what they do, they are not allowed to actually provide a value. They are allowed to provide a range of value.
Okay.
And sometimes there's a lot of fantastic realtors out there, but some realtors are looking for a sale.
Right.
So they want to give you a number that they think you want to hear.
And could be a much, above the market value.
Usually it is, yeah, because they want to get you on the hook, so to speak. We are bound by our governing body, and we are basically acting on behalf of the bank. And so the bank looks for us to provide that value.
Got it.
Yeah.
Obviously, the market went a little crazy during COVID, and the appraisal values have all gone up. What is it that when you go, I know this is probably a long answer, but what is it when you go into a house, what are you looking for? Are you looking for upgrades? Are you looking for, what is it exactly that that checks the boxes off?
Well, homeowners ask me that frequently. We're almost all the time asked that. And my answer is always, I'm essentially looking at your house as if I'm a prospective buyer and how they would look at it. So the finish, the size, is the house in a good location? Of course, that's one of the bigger parts. And if everything is fine, there's no issues and stuff like that, then we basically go by square footage and everything, take everything into consideration. And a lot of people ask, I've got some gardening done in the backyard and stuff like that. How much does that impact it? I said, my response is, it all impacts the value. It's my job to find out how much it impacts the value.
Right. And there's so many adjustments that happen. Obviously I've ordered a lot of appraisals in my almost 20 years of doing this. And the adjustments sometimes can be, very small, but sometimes the adjustments can be very vast. And oftentimes when I get an appraisal in, there's 3, 4, 5, 6 comparables. How does that impact that final value?
Well, every lender has their own parameters.
Okay.
So if some lenders will only like us to go back 3 months, and then it's in certain markets.
So if you have a really unique home, that could be a challenge.
Oh, very, yeah. So sometimes that's when we have to add 4 and 5 and 6, and sometimes up to 9.
Wow.
I think the most I've ever done was 9. Yeah, and it's a challenge, and it takes a long time to do it, but that just it proves to the reader and the underwriter of that report that they're more secure in that value that we're putting on it.
Of course.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
sure.
What impacts the appraisal value more? Is it the curb appeal? Is it the outside stuff? Or is it the new finishings, the new drywall, new paint, new carpets?
It's a little bit of both, because as soon as we drive up to a property, I mean, curb appeal is exactly what it is. It's curb appeal. So you get a good or a positive or a negative feel as soon as you drive up to it. Then you go inside, and if the outside you get a negative feeling to it, and you go inside and it's all totally renovated, then your feeling could change.
Right.
Or you could still be like, well, I still don't like the outside of it. The inside's great, but the outside looks like crap.
Yeah, for sure. And I've watched so many real estate shows. Obviously, we're seeing them on Netflix and all kinds of streaming platforms all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If buyers and borrowers out there are looking to just do, one thing that's going to increase their property value now, like maybe they're buying the property and their intention is to do a refinance and they're going to do one thing to increase the property value, what would you say like the number one thing that, borrowers should do?
The number one thing always has been kitchen and bathrooms.
Okay.
You want to renovate those. But the close number two now is doing secondary suites.
Right.
That's a huge thing in Halifax. I've never seen so many in my life. And people are either putting them basement units in, or converting garages to secondary suites, or even building secondary suites in the backyard.
Right, like a laneway. And we're certainly going to talk about more of that later in the show. It's been a really, really hot topic.
Mm-hmm.
I expect we're going to see many more of these secondary suites come here in the new year.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've heard of some changes that have been announced by the federal government that it's going to make financing of some of these secondary suites, I think, easier overall.
Yeah.
But our municipality here in Halifax, they've really kind of opened the door to more of these secondary suites in terms of bylaws. I remember, 15 plus years ago, if it wasn't a legally, a 2 unit, it was really hard to even get mortgage financing or use any of that income. But now this, nanny suite, in-law suite is certainly a lot more palatable, I think, hopefully from a real estate appraisal perspective, but also from a lender perspective as well in terms of getting financing.
Absolutely. It seems like the rules are changing every day. We're seeing, like you said, years ago, if it had to have two separate power services or heating services and stuff like that. Now it's all kind of amalgamated, and if there's a legal usable kitchen, then it's a secondary suite. Yeah.
Okay, that's really good to know.
Derek, we talk about appraisals and neighborhoods and location being location.
Mm-hmm.
How much does the neighborhood that you're in affect the appraisal of a home? And by that question, I'm asking if you're living in an upscale neighborhood and maybe there's a couple of more rundown houses in the area, or maybe there's some kind of empty lot or something along those lines. I hear about things all the time that people say, well, that's going to affect my property's value having this there. Do you see that in your practice?
We do. We see it. It seems to be more of a concern of homeowners rather than home purchasers, because especially where the supply is so limited now, people are more willing to kind of deal with that and accept it. They'll take properties in a more rundown area or with rundown properties around it, because there's really just nothing else.
Well, and it can be a great way to build net worth in terms of building an asset.
Yeah.
Sometimes buying the worst home in the best area can be a great solution, especially if you're planning on improving it.
Absolutely.
So we're seeing more and more of that, really every day.
Yeah.
Do you ever come across a situation where people are just not happy with that appraisal value? I think everybody thinks their stuff is worth more than it's actually worth. Like, tell me how do you handle that? Like, how does that, impact? Because obviously you're receiving the calls.
Yes, I've received the calls, but I've never had anybody unhappy with the value.
They just need to understand the whys, probably.
That's totally a lie.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought you just explained it away to them, and they're like, okay, I got what you're saying.
No, we do, and especially when the values jumped up so much.
Of course.
In 21 and 22. A lot of people are still thinking that the values are increasing at that increment. They're not.
Like, are we thinking what now? Like 1%, 2%, 3%? Like more to where we were like pre-pandemic?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is normal. I mean, that feels more balanced.
That's safe, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still lots of people that are not happy with their value because they've got a vested interest in it.
Right.
And they think it's worth X amount of dollars, and sometimes they just dig their heels in and say you're absolutely wrong.
Well, where I see this is probably very similar to in real estate when you see these listings and they're just completely out of touch. Probably, they think this is what the value should be. But what we see from an appraisal perspective, it really should be representative on what people could sell their home for.
Yep. Yeah.
Like that's really, I think, the value that you're going for.
Yeah. And sometimes the realtors are even kind of their hands are tied with the homeowners just really wanting that value.
If you've liked what you've heard and you want to learn more, feel free to visit us online at teamclinton.ca.